I'm Sandy Vanoy, Interim Dean in the Walker College of Business, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here today. Our Boyles Lecture Series began in 1988 and was dedicated to Treasurer Harlan Boyles in honor of his service to the state of North Carolina. An endowment fund was established at that time with the assistance of former U.S. Senator James T. Broyhill to permanently endow the series in Boyles' name. Throughout his life and career, Treasurer Boyles was dedicated to education. And throughout his involvement with Appalachian State University and the Walker College of Business, he was able to share his experience, advice, and wise counsel with students and future business leaders. The Walker College is honored to host this event. As a result of this series, students are able to learn from and interact with high-level business executives, including today's keynote speaker, Pamela Wright. Throughout this event, we ask that all students remain seated and student IDs will be scanned at the conclusion of today's program. It is now my pleasure to introduce our platform party. Today's featured speaker, Pamela Wright of Mars Incorporated. Dr. Sherry Everts, our esteemed Chancellor. And Edward Boyles, Managing Director of Wells Fargo's Securities and Treasurer, Boyles' son. I'll now invite Chancellor Everts to bring greetings and introduce our distinguished speaker. Chancellor Everts is the university's 8th leader. Since 2014, under her guidance and leadership, App State has established itself as the premier public undergraduate institution in the Southeast. Enrollment has grown to nearly 21,000 students, while App State remains ranked 3rd in the UNC system and well above the national average for retention and graduation rates. Enrollment of underrepresented students has increased by 66%, and retention rates for underrepresented students ranks 5th in the UNC system. App State regularly earns top national accolades for academic excellence. For the second consecutive year, U.S. News and World Report has named App State as #1 in most innovative schools and #2 in best undergraduate teaching. Please help me welcome our acclaimed Chancellor, Dr. Sherry Everts, to the podium.
Thank you, Dean Vanoy, for your kind remarks. And I'd like to echo Dean Vanoy's welcome to the students, faculty, staff, community members, business leaders, and special guests joining us today for this very special Boyles Lecture Series. On behalf of the university, I would also like to thank our special guest, Edward Boyles, for his ongoing support of the Boyles Distinguished Lecture Series and of App State. Edward has been a great advocate and friend to the university for many years. Thank you, Edward. We are delighted that you have joined us today. Thank you, Edward. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our featured speaker and my friend, Pam Wright. Pam's business experience spans operations to governance over her 35 years at Mars Incorporated. Her roles and focus blended her affinity for technical subjects, the satisfaction of making things, and her caring for people. She is a former chair and director of the Mars Board, which governs the $40 billion business owned by the Mars family. She retired from Mars in 2021, but continues to serve on the technical committee. Pam Wright, who I know as Pam, began her career with Ted Bates Advertising as an account executive. When she joined Mars Incorporated, she shifted her focus and immersed herself in operations and supply chain. Her first job was an operations supervisor in what was then Master Foods USA in Hackettstown, New Jersey. From there, she went on to learn the multifaceted elements of operations, from analysis to ship supervision, and from engineering to commercial, becoming a plant director in 1989. Over the years, she worked across continents with Mars confectionery and pet care businesses, ultimately serving as vice president of manufacturing for Mars Pet Care. In the latter part of her career, Pam focused her energy as an ambassador of Mars with the associates of acquired businesses. She helped drive successful integrations and merging of cultures, in particular when the company expanded its presence in veterinary health and services, transforming its traditionally more consumer goods portfolio. She was also a director on the board of Banfield, a network of veterinary hospitals that are part of Mars Pet Care. Banfield would later become pivotal to App State's history, as you will hear momentarily. Pam served as chair of the Mars board for 4 years and 16 years as director, retiring from the board in 2017. She was also a long-term member of the Mars Scientific Advisory Council. In these governance roles, her extensive experience, knowledge of supply, and natural curiosity were valuable assets. She currently serves as a board member of the Moffitt Cancer Research Center and the supervisory boards of Heineken NV and SHV, a Dutch family business, as well as a member of the Honorary Senate for Foundation Lindau Nobel Prize winners. She has a passion for education, something we have in common, and she has continued to support all of her alma maters, formerly serving on the board of Vassar College, as well as on the board of trustees of Potomac School, and chairing the committee on trustees at Foxcroft School, both in Virginia. As she became more engaged with App State through her partner, alumnus and trustee Mark Ricks, Pam worked with the university to develop an innovative partnership between Banfield and App State. Last year, I announced a multi-million-dollar sponsored contract with Banfield Pet Hospital to support the development of a 4-year online degree program for licensed veterinary technicians. This innovative program is the first of its kind and will help meet shortages for skilled veterinary professionals in the rural areas of our region and beyond. The App State online program will combine Bachelor's of Science credentials with veterinary technician licensure, and we are thrilled to welcome the program's first class this fall. App State has benefited greatly from the generosity of both Pam and Mark, and we are so fortunate to have Pam here today, sharing her time and expertise with our students. She spent this morning with the women of Walker, a group of amazing young female leaders in the Walker College of Business, engaging in conversation and sharing her business expertise, as well as the benefit of her breadth and knowledge in navigating many aspects of the business world. And she was fabulous. You heard. It is now my sincere pleasure to invite to the podium my dear friend and one of the kindest and most thoughtful people I have ever met, Pam Mars Wright. Let's give her a warm App State welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so all you lucky people came to listen to me today. It's always great. You get people to applaud for you before they ever hear you talk, and they tell you that you're great and you haven't heard a word out of my mouth. So hopefully it actually matches. And if you actually, I've got to give a couple of quick things. I'm Pam. I don't really sort of like go by all the title things, and I always laugh a little bit when people read my bio because I'm a little confused as to who they're talking about, because I'm not always sure that I'm really as wonderful as they make it sound. For the students here, most of you, I'm sure, are much better students than I ever considered being, though my parents would have preferred if I had been a better student, so I'll just say that now. But for those of you who are here, if you get credit for this, yeehaw for being here. If you want to fall asleep, don't worry about it. You won't offend me. Just don't snore, okay? That's all I ask for. But had you told me 10 years ago that I would be standing here at App State in Boone, North Carolina, I would have been talking to you. I would have been like, first, where's Boone? Secondly, what's App State? And 3, what are you either drinking or smoking? Because I want to have some of that because it's got to be good. So instead, here I am, all because of my husband, my partner, my better half, Mark. So he has introduced me to App, and truthfully, if I was really here as Pam, I'd be wearing my flannel App State jammy bottoms with my sweatshirt that's nice and big, and I'd be barefoot, and we'd be sitting here having just a casual chat while you're all dressed equally well. And now you can start writing your notes, okay, Philip? I just want you to know you can start taking notes anytime you want. So one of the things that's always, it's kind of weird. I have this thing and I've got this thing. So I'll try and stick here. I don't know that actually, I have people who say to me sometimes, many times, you're so normal, which I find fascinating because it's like, well, okay, what would you expect? And so people say, well, you know, how did you grow up? And I tell people I grew up just like everybody else. And they're like, no, you probably grew up differently, right? Because you're part of this family and you must have grown up differently. And I think people want me to tell them that, yes, I grew up differently and I had maids and butlers and all this kind of stuff, because it would be more interesting or more fun or more something than just saying you're like everybody else. But the reality is I am just like everybody else. I put my underwear on just like everybody else. And as I tell many associates, which is what we call all of the people who work at Mars Incorporated, as I tell them frequently, my poop smells just as much as yours. And I know that perhaps it's not what you want to hear, but it is the reality. I grew up in a normal, everyday house. We had to do our chores. I have 3 sisters. My father's philosophy was, why pay somebody to mow the yard when you have 4 perfectly capable daughters to do it? And so we got to do the push mower and the whole bit. And it grounds you. And I did the same thing to my kids. And they're wonderful, and they're my greatest achievement in life. Granted, they did a lot of it themselves too, and raising children takes a village, but the reality is that they are my greatest accomplishment, and they are phenomenal. I have a 28-year-old daughter. I have an amazing son-in-law who is 36, and I have a son who turned 26 2 days ago. And so, and he has a very nice girlfriend, but we hope that she's going to continue being with us because we really like her. Those things are important. So my children actually kind of grew up the same way. And they didn't tell you about this part, but I ran a bed and breakfast in Wyoming back in 1999 through 2004. And so people would say to me, so that's interesting. What made you want to do that? And when somebody says to you, that's interesting, that generally means that they really think you're kind of crazy, kind of like, that's nice, but why would you do that? And I actually wanted to do it. It was a lot of fun. But people say to me, but you didn't actually do that, right? You didn't actually run the bed and breakfast. You just had the bed and breakfast. And I tell people, no, I actually ran the bed and breakfast. And then they look at me and go, like, you made the beds and you cooked the breakfast? And I was like, yep. And I cleaned the toilets and the sinks and the bathrooms and all the other stuff that comes with running a bed and breakfast. And my children did too. And so they grew up just like any other kid. They had to do their chores. They had to empty the dishwasher. We didn't have maids and butlers. I was the driver, the chauffeur. So why do I tell you all this? I think because many times when people say to me, oh, it must be so cool to be part of a family business, and it's a big family business, so therefore, oh, you must be wealthy, and therefore you must live this wonderful life. And I always tell people, but it doesn't work that way. So my family's business is a little bit different. I am one of 10 in my generation. I am generation 4. My father is unfortunately passed away, but he was one of 3 in generation 3, which was easy to remember. And my father, my uncle, and my aunt ran the business. My cousins and my sisters and I tried to run the business. But we don't run it on a day-to-day basis. It's not as though I'm in there making the decisions as to whether or not, we're changing the color of the M&Ms. We don't get involved in all those things. But if you run a family business, which has lots of advantages, you have choices you have to make. And one of the choices we made as a family is that we put our money back into our business. Because growing a family business is our passion. And luckily, we have about 120,000 associates around the world. We have factories in over 70 countries. We try to make our products where we sell them because we believe in that philosophy. So we have factories in all over, some in the US, but plenty in Asia, Europe, Africa. I think the only continent we're not on is Antarctica. And so one of the things is that if you put the money back in the business, then you can grow the business. And if you're growing your business, you can make choices as to what you want to do with your business. Where do you want to make an impact? So do I live a good life? Yes, I live a very nice life. It's perfectly reasonable. And the biggest thing that my parents ever taught any of my sisters and I is that if you are lucky enough to have an education and to be able to go to university or college and have no debt when you're done, that is a gift. And that's the gift my parents gave all of us. So I was lucky enough that I could go to college and I graduated without any debt. And when my children went to school, that was equally the gift I gave them. That and the gift of traveling the world and seeing different parts of the world. And I would encourage everybody and anybody to do that because, as my daughter actually said the other day, she said to me, she goes, when you go to other parts of the world, not just on vacation, but actually you go to a business event, you talk to people, you meet them, you have a meal with them. It's more than just, hi, lovely beach, bye. And when you do those things, you really get to know people, and it makes you a more open person to what the globe is truly about. And I think it makes you a more balanced person. Perhaps a little less closed-minded. You meet people of different religions, different backgrounds. And when you do that and they're part of your family, they really impact you. You don't just make a decision that you're going to have a factory someplace without realizing the impact you have on that community and what a difference you can make to people's world. And so there are plenty of times that people say to me, well, but you can do whatever you want because, you know, they write in the news that you're this family that's worth all this money. And that's great, and I'm glad people think that, and we don't really necessarily tell them differently, because really it's nobody's business, to be very honest. But, you know, I can't sell you a chair, or a factory line, or, you know, a brand of something, because that's where we put our money. And that's what we as a family believe in. And so I always go to meet associates and I thank them for the opportunity they give me and they give my family to continue doing what we want to do, which is running this business, being passionate about what you do. And so what's important about that? Well, being passionate. Be passionate about something. It doesn't really matter what necessarily it always is, but to be passionate about something, to really, you know, wake up and be excited to go do something that luckily was my job. Am I going to lie to you and tell you that I woke up every single morning and went, yay, I get to go work to do whatever I'm doing? Absolutely no effing way. Doesn't happen, wasn't me. There's definitely days, I don't think I had years, but I definitely had some months where it's like, really? I got to do this again, and I got to do it again tomorrow. And that's the way it is. And with a family business, sometimes those are different, right? So you don't always get a choice. And I was telling the women of Walker this morning, I said to them, so when I left advertising back in 1986, the majority of you in the back there weren't born, but that's okay. Back in the age of dinosaurs, I worked in advertising. And so I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. It wasn't me, right? And you can do different jobs in your life that maybe aren't you, and they lead you to other things. And so I had kind of concluded I wasn't going to be an advertising exec, working for an advertising agency, and that was going to be my career. By the way, I'm a history major, so what significance does that have? Not much. And so I called up my father. A true story. I called up my father and I said, you know, I think I'd like to come and work for the family business. Now, I had done summer jobs. I had worked in numerous summer jobs, starting at the bottom. So my first summer job was picking peanuts for Snickers and peanut M&Ms, God's honest truth, in Albany, Georgia, where there's a lot of peanuts. And you sit and you look at a line that goes by with lots of peanuts on it, and you have to try and pick any stones or sticks that didn't get taken away. Problem number one, if you look at the line and not the peanuts, you get motion sickness. So I'm 18, and I'm like, oh, okay, so how do you do that? And they go, well, you just look at the peanuts. And I'm like, okay, I'm looking at the peanuts and I'm still feeling sick to my stomach. And they're like, no, don't look at the line, look at the peanuts. It took me 3 weeks, I think, before I could finally figure out how to do that. It's a little bit more challenging than you think. I washed floors, got run away with one of those washer machines, cleaned toilets, did all sorts of different jobs. And so I did those over summers, but, you know, I hadn't really thought I wanted to work in my family's business, hadn't thought about it one way or the other, really. So I call up my father and I say, yeah, I think I'd like to come and work for the company. And he says to me, okay. Calls me back, says, you show up in Hackettstown, New Jersey on this day, and you'll start your job. I did not ask what my job would be. could be a little concerning that I didn't do that, but it just didn't cross my mind. I thought I would go into marketing, right? That would make sense. Advertising, marketing, those go hand in hand. No, that's not what happened. I showed up, and this very, very nice man who became a good friend of mine shows up with my white uniform, with my safety metal-toed shoes, my bump cap, my hairnet, and says, "Welcome to shift work in the Hackettstown factory. You're going to be making chocolate and be responsible for making chocolate." Okay, not exactly what I'd been thinking, kind of like shift work, like I'm going to work 7 to 3, next week is 3 to 11, next week is 11 to 7, and round you go. And that's what I did. And I absolutely loved it. I was like a little duck in water, happily paddling away, loving my job. And I tell you this because sometimes people see things in you that you don't see in yourself. And somewhere in my years over the summer where I'd done these jobs, and obviously they must have told my father and my uncle how I was doing, or did I do a good job or whatever, that I obviously loved manufacturing, that I liked being in a factory. But had you asked me, "Pam, what do you think you should go do?" I never would have told you that that's where I thought I would fit in. But somebody saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I absolutely stayed in manufacturing, loved manufacturing. And there's something to be said for making something. When you work and you can say at the end of the day, this is what I made. Whether it's pet food or whether it's M&Ms or whether it's anything else, you can actually count it, feel it, see it. And there's something very satisfying in that. And so I ended up staying in manufacturing all my life. And I still have a passion for manufacturing. And if somebody says to me, "Oh, you can go visit a concrete factory," I'll be the first one to sign up and go see it. Just because it's interesting. It's interesting to be exposed to things that you know nothing about that then surprise you because it connects to something else. And before you know it, you are in a different place than where you thought you would be. And so I ended up I got sent to Mattoon, Illinois. I got sent to Australia, which sounds like a wonderful place to be, but it's a really long way away. Like, really long. And when all your friends and your family are living not where you are, and you're there brand new, married with a baby, you miss your friends and your family. But it's an opportunity, and it was a great opportunity, and I made new friends, and I saw a part of the world that I would have never seen, and I lived in a part of the world that I would have never lived in. But I didn't grow up as a typical American child. I actually grew up in Europe. So I was born in the US, and then as a little itty-bitty baby, we moved to Holland. And my father started the factory, the chocolate factory in Holland. It burned to the ground right before it was supposed to open. Which, it's like, oh, okay, shit happens. That's a little bit more than what you expect, but literally to the ground. And my father, that experience impacted my father profoundly. And so all of our factories, because of that, have crazy fire suppression systems and all this kind of stuff, because those things don't go away. And my father had to call his father to say, got some bad news. The factories no longer standing. It wasn't his fault, it wasn't anybody's fault. Nobody got hurt, and that's what counts. But it does teach you lessons. And so my father's lesson is one that then impacted the company forever. So I worked in the business. Not all of my generation has worked full-time in the business. Some of us have, some of us haven't. But we have a choice. And as I say to my children, you have a choice. You can have a choice of whether you want to work in the business, whether you want to go do something else. My daughter is currently doing her PhD in industrial organizational psychology. That's about as much of what I understand she's writing about. It's not that I'm stupid, but that's way beyond my pay grade. And my son runs his own business, and he's got his master's degree. So they're both more educated than I am. But I've told my children all their life, you can pursue whatever you want. Have passion for it. Pursue your goals. You can do anything you want. You may not just be a bump on a log. You must contribute to society. I don't care how you do it. Be a professional volunteer. But just do something that impacts the world in a positive way. None of us get to be here on the planet and just take up space. At least not in my family. So I've told my children, you don't have to work at Mars Incorporated, you don't have to be involved in Mars Incorporated, but you must pay it back. Because these 120,000 associates who work every single day for our family's business make it so that you have advantages in life. And you can go to college, and you can follow your dreams and get your PhD or get your master's or whatever it is, and not have any debt when you graduate. That doesn't come for free. Life does not come for free. My father, if he had one saying that I heard all my life until he passed away, is money does not grow on trees. We tried to find that tree, but it doesn't grow on trees. And I told my children the same thing. Money does not grow on trees. And so you have to pay it back to these associates. They depend on you. Mars Incorporated is the company it is, not because of what I do, not because of what I've done. I think I've contributed, but it's not because of me. It's not because of my sisters or my cousins. We work hard. We work hard to continue this company for future generations. That's what drives us to do what we do. And to make sure that those 120,000 associates, and hopefully more in the future, are also given the opportunities for what they want to do in Mars Incorporated, and to grow the company, and to continue making Mars bigger and more impactful to the world in a positive way. So we have lots of associates who they have children who in the first time ever have been able to go to college or to university, that have been able to afford to buy a house. Those things, when somebody comes to you and says, thank you for giving me that opportunity, has an amazing impact. Because they thank you, but actually, do I deserve the thanks? Or do they deserve my thanks for letting me do what I want to do? And so it's actually a very mutual relationship. I help you, you help me, the business continues to grow, and we actually have associates who are third or fourth generation, which is it's very humbling that somebody's family likes your family and your business well enough that you have 3 or 4 generations of their family wanting to stay with you. But, you know, just being a company is nice. But we're kind of a little bit quirky. So, like, I don't really like chocolate very much. Actually, it's a genetic flaw of mine, but it's actually true. I don't like chocolate. And I'm sure most of you know that my family does chocolate. We also do gum and, you know, Starburst and other things like that. We also have a very big pet care business. And that includes food and veterinary care. And we didn't start out that way. It all started because my great-grandfather, who I didn't know, actually, he grew up, he had polio as a child. And so he couldn't play with the other kids, and he lived in Minnesota. And so in the wintertime, his mother, Ethel, no, his mother is not Ethel, but his mother would make chocolates, like little homemade chocolates that then she would put in a little thing and give to her friends for Christmas. You know, you give to your neighbors and things like that. So he decided he wanted to make a malted milkshake that wouldn't melt. So he came up with the Milky Way bar, which is meant to taste like a malted milkshake if you were to drink a malted milkshake. It was not a path that went like this, or like this. It was lots of failures, and eventually successful, makes this Milky Way bar. His son, my grandfather, and he sell it. This is all very nice. And then my great-grandfather and my grandfather didn't quite see eye to eye. You know, like one wanted to go right, the other wanted to go left. So my grandfather and great-grandfather decided to separate their ways, and my grandfather went to the UK around 1930. Maybe not the best time, truly, in the state of the world to go to England, but he went there, and he started the Milky Way bar there. Couple rules. He got some money. He got the recipe. He was not allowed to call it the Milky Way bar, which is why it's called a Mars bar everywhere else in the world. It tastes pretty similar, though of course ingredients taste different in different parts of the world, milk and stuff like that. So my grandfather started there. And then eventually he ended up buying out his half-sister, put it all together, and you have Mars Incorporated as we know it now, so to speak. But it was really just confectionery products. He came up with the M&M and Snickers and some other things. And then he also decided to get into pet food. Why? Because he met a man who, and this is one of these, you know, why do I tell you this? Because hopefully you get the lesson that sometimes the people you meet or the places you go give you opportunities that you didn't necessarily expect. And if you're open to those things, then sometimes they can lead you to amazing results. So he met a man who traveled around England with his dog. And he would go to different towns and, you know, do kind of like the little show with the dog that, you know, jumps over the stuff and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, you put money in his little jar and on he goes to the next town. My grandfather thought this was rather interesting, and he meets this man and he starts talking to him, and he realizes that this man has, you know, canned meat. I'm not talking about cans like in a can, but, you know, home canned goods in a jar. And he says to him, well, why do you have this? And the man says, well, because my dog is my livelihood. This is how I make my living. and my dog needs to perform. And he needs to have a very consistent diet to perform, because anybody who has a dog or a cat, but generally a dog, if you have a dog and sometimes if you give them something maybe you shouldn't give them, the outcome is not so pleasant, right? So, and if you have a dog that needs to perform, that doesn't work, right? You can't have a dog that's got the runs while it's jumping over the fence. Not good. So my grandfather goes, wow, that's really interesting. And then he figures out that, oh, you know, there's probably lots of parts that are left over that nobody uses. So what happens to those parts? And then he goes, well, maybe I should put those parts together and then I'll make some food and then I'll sell it. And lo and behold, off you go to the races. Had he not met that man, I don't know that my grandfather would have been particularly interested in pet food. But we do the pet food. We ended up meeting somebody who started a veterinary hospital back in a veterinarian in 1990s. And he believed that having veterinary care be very specific and follow a program, that you can actually prove that pets live longer. So if they come every 6 months, they see the doctor, you can see anything before they get sick, yada, yada, yada. And he needed some money. And he met somebody who worked for Mars, and he thought, that could be interesting. So he went to my uncle, he said, that could be interesting. So we'll invest a little bit. So we did. And then you start realizing, well, you know, if you take care of them early with their veterinary care and you mesh that with their food and you put all this together, you can actually make pets' lives better. And most people who have pets want their pets to live as long as they can. And therefore, if you can provide something that helps lengthen their life or make it as positive as possible, that's a benefit. So was it serendipitous? A little bit. Does it tell you sort of like maybe you should be open to different things and it leads you different places? Absolutely. If we had only stuck to what we did before, we wouldn't be the company we are now. So pet care, when you include all of it, is our largest, actually, segment of Mars Incorporated. So it's bigger than chocolate, or confectionery, and it's also bigger than our food business. So that's kind of, you know, keeping your eyes open to being different and changing, and it's something that we have to do now because the world changes, and there's a lot of companies that aren't around anymore because they didn't change, because they said, this is what I am, and this is what I'm going to be, and this is what I am, and this is what I'll be. And then when nobody wants what you are or what you make, you don't have a business anymore. And so part of that is also a philosophy we try to use as a family. So back to this family thing, people say to me, it must be just great. And so I'll ask you all a simple question. All of you in this room, if I said to you, you get to have a family business, but this is the rule. You gotta work with all of them. Right? So we're talking your mom, your dad, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, your siblings, and you don't get to choose, right? This is not like, okay, well, I'll pick you because I like you and this one, but not these three because I don't like them. No, you got to take them all. And when I say that to people and they go, really, you got to work with all of them? And I'm kind of like, yeah, you got to kind of work with all of them. And they're like, no, I don't think I'd want to do that. But that is our reality. And that's probably the most challenging part of a family business. There's a reason why family businesses don't last multi generations. And it's not because, you know, they don't have a good product or whatever. A lot of times it's because you know, part of the family wants to out, part of the family wants to go right, some want to do something else. And if you don't have anything that ties you together, that makes you want to work together, then it's very easy to want to say, I'm done. And, you know, I always say to people, well, you can sit and sort of go, well, I just don't like that one so much, or they're just not really contributing as much as the other, or whatever you think. And I always say to people, yeah, but somebody could have that same opinion about you, right? So it's all fine that you think to yourself, oh, I'm pretty good. They should be happy to have me in the family and be part of the business. I mean, I help contribute. But the reality is somebody else might be thinking exactly that, like, oh, good God, I can't believe I have to listen to Pam again, right? But you don't get that choice. You have to take them all. And so as a family, we have certain fundamentals that have guided our business that I think is part of our success. And we have something called the 5 principles. And those 5 principles have grounded this company, and I think ground this family, because there's something that I was raised with them without knowing I was raised with them. They were that intrinsic to who my parent, well, my mom and my dad and my uncle, my grandparents. It's like part of our DNA. And so my children would say the same thing. So there's 5 principles. All of them are equally important. They're quality, efficiency, mutuality, responsibility, and freedom. Does that mean that there isn't other ones that could be useful? I don't know, probably, but we haven't figured out that there's any that we want to add. And there's none that we want to take away. I would tell you that I think the one that is probably very unique to us is mutuality. It's not something you see in a lot of companies. And the saying behind it is, and there's more to it, but as a mutual benefit is a shared benefit, and a shared benefit will endure. And I think if you take that attitude in life to everything, I don't care what it is, it really has served me and our family business very well. Because basically, it's not all about us, and it's not all about whoever. And so when we're talking to, you go on a sales call, right? It's not, okay, well, whatever you want, you get, and whatever I want, I get. It's like, what do we get together for the benefit of both of us so that there's a benefit to the future? This is about the future. It's about making sure that people want to work with you. It's the same thing for when we hire associates. You know, it doesn't work if it's like, well, it's all about me. You just come and work and I'll give you the basics and thanks a whole bunch. People don't want to stay with you for their life and their career if they don't feel like you are valuing what they contribute. So that's probably one of the different ones that we have. I think quality is pretty consistent. I mean, you know, I always use the example of if you were buying toilet paper, you'd like to think that the company who's making the toilet paper you're buying, doesn't matter to me which toilet paper you buy, but that they that they were following some sort of quality rules when they were making it, because if they didn't, the time you're going to find out is not when you want to find out, right? Because that's when you find out, is when you're sitting on the toilet and you go, damn, this is really shitty toilet paper. And so we take it very seriously because you take your hard-earned money to buy my product, whatever it is. Whether it's you're going to a veterinarian, whether you're buying a pack of M&Ms, whether you're buying Uncle Ben's rice, I mean, I don't care. Whatever it is, you're taking your hard-earned money, and your expectation is that you're going to get something of value for that, and that value is going to be worth what you paid for it, and that is going to meet your expectations of quality. So if, does it always work? I would not lie to you and say, oh, of course. No. Sometimes you open a pack of M&Ms and it's not exactly what you thought. That's a disappointment to us as manufacturers, but it's also a disappointment to you as a consumer. And are you going to go buy that product again? Or are you going to say, well, damn, I worked really hard for this money and they didn't give me what I expected, and it's not the quality I expected, it didn't taste like what I wanted, whatever. You're not going to go buy it again. So those things are, okay, get that. Efficiency is you want to make it efficiently, because if you run a factory, that's kind of how it works. And we run a lot of factories, like I said, all over the world. And then when you come to responsibility, it's one of my favorites, actually, because to me, I think everybody needs to take responsibility for themselves. I can sit and blame my parents on things, or I could blame my 5th grade teacher, or I don't know, whatever. But the reality of life is, you got to take responsibility for yourself, and you got to take responsibility for where you want to be in your life, and whether or not you want to, it doesn't come for free. People say to me, oh, it must be nice, you can just sit at home and it all just comes for free. No, that's not the way I was raised. That just doesn't happen in my life. You earn what you get. And if you want that, and if you don't want it, then go do something else. But it doesn't come for free. And so you have to take responsibility for what you want in life and where you want to go in life and what do you want out of that. And then freedom is a rather interesting one, because people go, well, what's that all about? And I tell people that we're a private family-held business. So it's held by my family, nobody else. We take very small dividends, enough to be able to, like I said, send my child to school, live a good life. But it's, I'm not living like the Kardashians, okay? So if you think that's my life, you need to come visit me, and after you sweep the kitchen floor, you'll be like, oh, okay, I don't want to be here. But I don't want to live like that either. And I'm not saying that they're not good people and they don't contribute to society or whatever else they do, but that's just not how I grew up. And so our family business is based on, we get very small dividends, because among other things, it's a good financial thing for your company to do, and to remember that you have shareholders who have a choice. And if your shareholders don't want to continue being shareholders, then that's a choice that has an impact on your family business. So we get very small dividends, and then the rest all goes back into the business, because that's what we as a family want to do. And because we like the freedom to make the choices that we want to make. We don't want a bank, as nice as bankers might be. Investment bankers might be, and they're very useful and we use them, don't get me wrong, but we are a very low debt company, because we don't want the banker to say to us, well, we don't really think you should invest in that. We're not sure the return on that is the best thing. Because the advantage of being in our position is we can take a long-term stand. So when we've put investments in something, it's because we believe in it, and it could take 20 years before you see a return. You might never see a return, but that's your prerogative. And you get to run your company the way you want. And you can pay your associates the way you want. And you can have the culture that you want to have. Now, it's not all done in isolation as a family, but that is a big part of it. We like to have the freedom to do the things we want to do and to make the changes we want to see in the world. And that includes doing environmental things, getting our factories to being zero waste, which is a huge thing. But it's something that we're committed to. And that doesn't come for free. Those things cost money and not necessarily something you get a return on. So we've invested in wind farms. It's, you know, you do it because it's the right thing to do, not necessarily because it's going to bring you a lot of money. We're not in the wind farm business. We're in the making stuff business, and that ain't it. But that's our commitment that you take. And so, you know, how do you make sure that the next generation wants to do the same thing? So I told you I'm part of the fourth generation. I am 61 years old. There are 10 in my generation, 3 above me, and obviously 6 below. It's about the extent of my mathematical skills. And so the next generation's 22 of them. The eldest will be 40 in June. The youngest will be 8 in July. The next generation, 6, is 8, 1 month after the other one turns 8. So we just call them G5 plus because it gets really, they now are just all within sort of the same continuation of that timeline. And one of the biggest things is how do you get the next generation to want to be committed to this family business? Because with family businesses comes family crap. And you got to work with all these people again, right? So all these cousins, and then now they have to work with their parents, like me and my sisters. And so it goes on. And you, again, don't get to choose the ones that you want to have. And people are raised differently, and they don't all have the same point of view. And you have to listen to other people's opinions. And you can't just roll your eyes and be like, ugh, because it just doesn't work that way. So one of the biggest things that we do, and my generation does, is to make sure that the next generation wants to take on this mantle. And probably one of the things I'm most proud of is that my generation has made it so that the next generation is really wanting to do that. They are excited. They want to do it. They already are very committed to all the different roles they play. At the same time, you also know they're going to do it differently than you do it. And that's not always easy because, you sometimes think that your ideas are kind of pretty good. And then they come along and go, yeah, and we don't think that's actually so good. We want to do this. And you're like going, well, wait a minute. You should listen to me. And it's like, why? I mean, why should I listen to you any more than I should listen to anybody else? Because you can't be like, yeah, but I'm your mom. You should listen to me because I said so. That stopped a long time ago. So I think one of the things that's really important is making sure that we hear their voices and give them the freedom to do things that they want to do, to have that, to cultivate that passion, to want to commit the time and the energy to this family business. Whether you're running it, whether you're just a family member who doesn't want to have anything to do with it. You can't get angry at the ones who don't want to be involved. You can sit and say, but that's not fair. I'm doing all this work, and they're just sitting around getting all the benefits. Oh, well, that's life, you know? But they aren't. They're doing it in a different way. And so it's one of those things that, as I say to my children, you have a choice. You don't have to be in this business. So it's your choice. But if you make that choice, make sure you do it with your eyes open. Know what you stand for, and equally, more importantly, I'd say, know what you don't stand for. It's easy to say, these are the things I really like. But if I asked you to tell me the things you really don't like, that would be a breaker that you would say, if this company's like this, I don't want to be part of it. You need to know what you stand for. You need to know whether or not you have are you doing it out of duty, or are you doing it because you want to do it? So I think those are some of the things that, if I look at this and I go, let's see, lessons learned and successful strategies. Lessons learned are, you've all heard this. There's always somebody smarter than you in the room. That is actually true, as I've learned over the years. There's always somebody smarter than you. You can always learn something from somebody. I don't care if they're the person bagging your groceries. You can always learn something from somebody if you're open enough to hearing what they have to say. Be kind. Be a nice person. It doesn't hurt you. And for all you know, you might end up being really nice to somebody who will change your life in a way that you never expected. So, are those things that you would hear from other people? Absolutely. Is it anything that's, wise words from me? No, not particularly, but they are true. I will say that they're very true. And nurture that passion for learning. As I get older, you learn less, actually. So part of what I'm trying to do is learn something new. Do something new to stretch your brain. My mother turned 92 2 days ago. She still downhill skis. Really, truly. She still downhill skis. She drives her own car. She cooks her own meals. She does all those kinds of things. But she has an unquenchable thirst for learning, for always doing something new, for always being open to that. And so I would encourage you as well to do that. Always look for something different that you could learn. I don't think there's really a whole lot more, and you've listened to me blabber along for a long time, but I'll put on my glasses to see if there's anything that I think would be really worthwhile telling you that you haven't already heard. But I don't think so. No, I think that's about it. And honestly, it's been my pleasure to be here. I think this university is a really cool place. I love coming here. I have met some of the most wonderful people who have impacted my life in ways that I think they don't even realize that they have impacted my life. I've made friends here that I would have never thought I would make either. And for somebody who did not go to a university, I went to a small college. I thoroughly enjoy coming, I admit limited times, to the football games. And I cheer for the Mountaineers loudly. And I will just put in this little plug that I'd really like you to have better refs who like us better than the other team, because I spend a lot of time standing there screaming at them that they should have, ref, you suck and you should have good eyes. So I thank you for my introduction to all that, because I never had that before. But I do love coming here, and I appreciate you listening to me. I hope you got a little something out of what I've told you today. And on the last closing note, because it is St. Patrick's Day, I gotta give it to you, sir. That is the best. Next time I'm wearing the kilts. So thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Oh, thank you. I'll leave my stuff there.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, one of the fun parts here at the end is to get to thank our speaker. So Pam, thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today. So again, thank you all. We have a tradition of honoring our speaker with the American Eagle. The eagle symbolizes strength, gracefulness, keenness of vision, power of flight. Pam, your passion for what you do clearly comes through, and you clearly possess these characteristics.
Thank you.
So we are pleased to present you this Crystal Eagle in appreciation for your participation in this lecture series. And it's been our honor and pleasure to have you share your insights and expertise with us here on campus and in our community. And we cannot thank you enough, and hope you will sure come back soon. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. You are wonderful. Thank you.
Well, I know we have all enjoyed our time with astute and knowledgeable Pam Mars Wright. She's inspired all of us to become more innovative and engaged leaders who positively impact our community. Thank you, Pam, and thank you, Chancellor Everts, for making this very special occasion possible. And thank you, Edward Boyles, for your participation in today's event. I'd like to extend a special thanks also to our students, our faculty and staff, and special guests for attending today's events. Students, your ID cards may be scanned on the concourse level as you leave, and this concludes the 63rd Harlan Boyles Distinguished Lecture. Thank you.